I paid for the wedding. Every flower, every plate, every inch of that venue. I paid for the laughter that would echo through its halls, for the music that would fill its air, for the lights that would make strangers look beautiful for one night. And when I walked up to the door on my daughter's wedding day, in the suit I had pressed the night before, the one Renata said made me look like a man who still believes in good endings, the guard looked at his clipboard, looked at me, and said, "Sir, your name is not on the guest list." He said it softly, like he was afraid the words might break something. My name is Clifton Marsh, 61 years old. I've spent 28 years developing commercial property across southern Ontario, and I've been a father for 32. I'm a big man, 6'2", broad-shouldered, the kind of man who still shakes hands like he means it. I wear flannel on weekends and drive a truck that's seen better days because I can't bring myself to care about appearances. My wife, Renata, says I'm the only man she's ever met who can close a $2 million deal and then spend 40 minutes worrying about whether the tomatoes are getting enough water. She's not wrong. Our daughter, Sabrina, was our pride. Sharp, driven, beautiful, and blessed with her mother's eyes and her mother's ability to make me feel like I'd said something wrong before I'd finished saying it. I mean that with love. Renata has used that skill for good her entire life. My best friend, Dennis Holt, has been telling me for 3 years that I give that girl too much rope. Dennis has known me since we were 22, working the same job site in Hamilton. He's been right about most things. I didn't always listen. That's my flaw, and I own it. When Sabrina told us she was engaged to a man named Marcus, Renata cried happy tears at the dinner table. I shook his hand and said, "Welcome to the family." Marcus worked in insurance, quiet, polite, the kind of man who shakes your hand like he's trying to pass a test. He seemed decent, and Sabrina seemed happy. That was enough. When the conversation turned to the wedding, Renata and I agreed we'd cover it. Not half, all of it. That's just who we are. Sabrina came to us with a budget of $114,000. I said, "Fine." Renata said, "Fine." We said, "Call us when you need transfers." Over the next 8 months, I wired money 11 times, venue deposit, catering company, florist, cake, rehearsal dinner. Every payment came from my account. But whenever I asked about the seating chart or what time I should arrive, Sabrina changed the subject. Smoothly. She was good at it. Marcus is handling that part. We're still sorting details. I'll send everything next week. Next week never came. The night before the wedding, she texted, "Everything is taken care of, Dad. See you Saturday." I showed that text to Dennis over the phone. He was quiet for a second, then said, "Clifton, something's not right." Saturday came. I wore my good suit, charcoal gray. Renata tied my tie in the kitchen, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Go see our daughter get married." She stayed home, she'd been sick all week. I drove 40 minutes to Elmhurst Estate, a stone property outside Burlington. The kind of place that looks like it was built for promises. The driveway was long, lined with oak trees that looked older than most marriages. I paid for every inch of that driveway. I parked. I walked to the entrance. A young man in a dark jacket stood at the door with a clipboard. He looked at me pleasantly and asked my name. Clifton Marsh. He ran his finger down the list. He ran it again. Looked up with the expression of a man who hadn't been told this part of his evening would go this way. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I don't see your name here." I said, "I understand." He looked relieved, like he'd expected anger and got grace instead. I thanked him. Turned around. Walked back down the driveway I paid for. The wind was soft, carrying faint music from inside, violins, laughter, the sound of a celebration I had built but wasn't allowed to enter. I reached my truck, opened the door, and sat in silence. 90 seconds passed. Then I reached for my phone. I sat in the driver's seat of my truck, the the suit jacket pulling tight across my shoulders. Through the windshield, I could still see the stone facade of Elmhurst Estate, glowing with the kind of light you only get from money. My money. Inside, violins played, guests laughed, and Sabrina's new life was beginning without me. 90 seconds passed. My hands rested on the steering wheel, heavy, unmoving. Then I reached for my phone. I dialed Linda Forsyth, my private banker in Oakville. Linda had been my contact for 19 years. She answered her cell on Saturdays, never made you feel guilty for calling. Linda, I said, my voice steady but low, I need to stop every pending payment tied to the wedding account. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing, the faint shuffle of papers. Clifton, are you sure? I closed my eyes. Completely sure. She didn't argue. Give me 8 minutes. It took 6. The venue balance, $41,000, stopped. The catering final payment, $22,000, stopped. The florist balance, $9,000, stopped. The cake balance, $4,200, stopped. $76,000 canceled in one phone call from a parking lot in Burlington, while a man in a dark jacket stood at a door I had paid for and tried not to watch me through the window. I put the phone down. The silence in the truck was deafening. I started the engine, pulled out of the driveway lined with oak trees, and drove home. On the way, I called Dennis Holt. He picked up on the first ring, he always did. Dennis, I said. What happened? They turned me away. Silence. Then, what did you do? I told him. Another silence. Then a laugh, sharp and dispel. Yes. You absolute legend. Don't say that. I'm saying it. Dennis, they're going to call me. I know. Do you want company? Give me an hour. I'll be there in 45. He was there in 40. That night wasn't triumphant. It was heavy. I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee that went cold. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Upstairs, Renata was asleep, still fighting the cold that had kept her from the wedding. I thought about Sabrina, the girl who used to fall asleep in the truck on the way home from the hardware store when she was 7. I thought about every transfer, every wire, every time I'd ignored the feeling that something was wrong. Dennis sat across from me, eating the leftover soup Renata had made before she got sick. He didn't fill the silence. He didn't need to. That's the kind of friend he was, the kind who could sit across a table and just be there. The phone lay face down on the table. I knew it would ring. I knew Sabrina would call. But for the first time in 32 years of being her father, I wasn't sure I wanted to answer. Monday morning arrived gray and heavy. I sat at my desk, the folder of cancelled transfers beside me, and dialed Catherine Briggs, my lawyer. Catherine had been with me for 12 years. She had a voice that sounded like she had already won the argument before you'd even started making it. I explained everything, the payments, the cancellations, the door, the silence. She listened without interruption, her pen scratching faintly in the background. When I finished, she said, because every payment came from your personal account and no contract assigned the funds irrevocably to Sabrina, you're legally clean. The vendors will pursue her, not you. I exhaled slowly. Then Catherine paused. Did they at least serve the appetizers before the cancellations went through? I stared at the papers on my desk. I honestly don't know, Catherine. That's unfortunate, she said. I couldn't tell if she meant for the guests or for Sabrina. I didn't ask. At 3:47 that afternoon, my phone lit up. Sabrina. I let it ring. She called 6 more times. I didn't answer. Then the text came, Dad, what did you do? I read it. Put the phone face down on the kitchen table. Across from me, Dennis was eating the leftover soup Renata had made before she got sick. He looked at the phone, then at me. Are you going to answer? He asked. Eventually. What are you going to say? What you say to someone who leaves you off the list for the party they asked you to fund. Dennis nodded. Ate more soup. He didn't press. That's the kind of friend he was, the kind who could sit across a table and just be there without needing to fill the silence. 4 days later, I texted Sabrina, when you're ready to have an honest conversation about what you planned and why, I'm here. She replied a week later. Said she hadn't meant to hurt me. Said Marcus's family had concerns, the situation was complicated, and she thought it would be easier this way. Easier. I thought about that word for a long time. About all the things we do to the people who love us most because we decide it will be easier. It never is. Renata and I haven't spoken to Sabrina since March. I don't know what happens next. What I do know is that Renata deserved better than to have her husband turned away at a door we paid for entirely. And I know that protecting yourself from that isn't cruelty, it's self-respect. The week after everything, Renata finally felt well enough to come downstairs. She appeared in the kitchen doorway on a Thursday morning in her housecoat, watching me make eggs. Clifton, she said, her voice soft but steady, I want you to know I'm proud of you. For the eggs? I asked, trying to lighten the moment. Don't ruin it. Sorry. I mean it. I know you do. I put a plate in front of her. She ate every bite without once mentioning.